Benjamin threw a rock straight up from a cliff that was 60 feet above the water. If the height of the rock h in feet after t seconds is given by the equation h is equal to negative 16t squared plus 68t plus 60, how long will it take for the rock to hit the water? Now, just so we can visualize what's happening here, we can look at the function and see, all right, well, we are starting 60 feet above the water, or Benjamin is. And he's throwing up a rock, and it's going up to some maximum point, and then it's going to end up coming down and hitting the water. All right, so this right here is my function. H is equal to negative 16t squared plus 68t plus 60. Now, my y-axis indicates my height in feet, and my x-axis indicates my time, and that's given in terms of seconds. Now, what this problem is asking is how long will it take for the rock to hit the water? Well, when the rock hits the water, its height would be at 0. So in other words, what I want to do is I want to solve this equation for when 0 is equal to negative 16t squared plus 68t plus 60. Now, in order to solve this equation, I can do it in a couple of different ways. I can try to factor it out right away, I can plug it into the quadratic formula, or I can look to see if I can simplify it. Now, some of you are going to look right away and say, okay, well, I can see that every value here is divisible by negative 4. But some of you might not see that quite as easily. So let's take it one step at a time until we have it in the most simplest form. If you look, you can see that all of these values, the negative 16, the 68, and the 60, are all even numbers. So we know at the very least we can divide by 2. However, I would like it for the coefficient in front of my t squared to be positive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by negative 2. When I do that, that gives me 0 is equal to 8t squared minus 34t minus 30. Now, once again, I can see that all of these are even values, the 8, the negative 34, and the negative 30. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to divide by 2 again. That gives me 0 is equal to 4t squared minus 17t minus 15. Now keep in mind the reason why I'm trying to divide by the greatest common factor, or in this case I've divided it just step by step because I couldn't see the greatest common factor right away, which is fine if you don't see it right away. The whole idea is so that I'm working with a simpler equation to kind of factor out. Right, so at this point, we can use a couple different methods to factor this out. I can use the AC method, which you may be familiar with from college algebra, which says that I need two values that multiply to give me negative 60. That's the product of 4 and negative 15. All right, so we're using the AC method here. So they have to multiply to give me a negative 60, but they need to add up to negative 17. So does everyone see that I could use negative 20 and a positive 3? So if I take negative 20 and a positive 3, they multiply to give me a negative 60, but add up to give me a negative 17. So I can rewrite this equation as 0 is equal to 4t squared minus 20t plus 3t minus 15. And essentially what's happened here is now I can factor by grouping and factor out this problem. So I look for the greatest common factor between 4t squared minus 20t, and I can factor out a 4t. That gives me t minus 5. And I can factor out a 3 from each of these two terms here. That gives me positive 3, t minus 5. And thus this factors out to 4t plus 3 times t minus 5. And now I'm going to set each of these factors equal to 0. So when I set 4t plus 3 equal to 0, that gives me 4t is equal to negative 3, and thus t is equal to negative 3/4. When I set t minus 5 equal to 0, that gives me t is equal to 5. Now at this point we need to keep in mind what we're working with and what t represents. T represents time, and it's impossible to have a negative time, so I know that this answer can't work. But here I know that I could have 5 seconds. So to answer our question up here, how long will it take? The rock will hit the water in how many seconds? Our answer would be in 5 seconds. And that is how we solve this problem. Now keep in mind that we could always double check that value. If I plug that 5 into this equation, I should end up with a height or an h value of 0.